In the quaint town of Eldermoor, nestled between towering mountains and ancient forests, lived a myth that had been whispered through generations. The legend spoke of the Chimeran Wraith, a fearsome creature with the body of a lion, the wings of a bat, and the head of a serpent. It lay dormant in the shadowy realms of the forest, emerging every 100 years to claim life in an offering to the dark spirits that once roamed the earth. Most dismissed the tale as nothing more than the fables of a long-lost time, but as the centennial blinked closer, fear thickened the atmosphere. As the moon waxed ominously towards the full gaze of midsummer, an otherworldly chill seeped into the townsfolk of Eldermoor. Rumors began circulating about strange happenings in the woods, the sound of wings beating against the sky, shadows skimming the ground, and livestock disappearing without a trace. Oliver, a skeptical folklore teacher, decided to investigate these tales, convinced that science could explain even the most fantastical stories. He organized a group of curious students and fellow teachers for a night excursion. As they meandered into the treacherous heart of the forest, laughter filled the air, mingling with a growing sense of unease. The moon cast ghostly rays upon the twisted branches above, and an unnatural stillness encased them as they ventured deeper. "Oliver, did you hear that?" whispered Melissa, a student with a penchant for the morbid. Crowned with trepidation, they all paused and strained their ears. Faintly, in the distance, they discerned a rhythmic rustling, like wings brushing against foliage. "It's nothing," Oliver insisted, though doubt gnawed at his confidence. "Just the wind or perhaps some nocturnal animal." Quote, but the quarrelsome crows flapping angrily from their perches begged to differ. As they pressed on, an unearthly howl echoed through the trees, resonating within their chests. Branches snapped like bones underfoot, and the air filled with a pungent odor of burnt earth and decay. Heart rate quickening, the group recoiled, glancing at each other with wide eyes. "Let's go back," Melissa urged, her voice quavering. But curiosity glimmered in Oliver's gaze. He pressed forward, driven by the desire to discover the truth behind the myth. Suddenly, before them, the shadows twisted and coiled, forming a mass that broke the barrier between reality and reverie. The Chimeran Wraith materialized, bursting forth from the darkness. Scales glistened under the moonlight, the lion's body brimming with strength while the snake's head writhed and hissed, pierce-like eyes reflecting the horror frozen on their faces. The creature unfurled its massive wings, a putrid blast of wind forcing the group into a cluster. Screams pierced the air, but Oliver stood frozen, unsure whether to flee or capture this moment for posterity. The legend he sought to debunk stood before him, malignant and magnificent. With a sudden snap of the serpent's jaws, it lunged towards the nearest victim, a boy named Greg who had always mocked the folklore. Greg's scream was cut short, swallowed by the creature's ravenous hunger. The others scrambled back, their instincts overpowering the bewitchment of Oliver's academic pursuits. They rushed through the underbrush, branches clawing at their skin while fear propelled them into a chaotic flight. When they reached the edge of the forest, heartbeats roaring in their ears, they paused. Every eye turned towards Oliver, and unspoken blame hung in the air like an unshed tear. He had led them into the darkness without believing. "We need to do something. It's out there," Melissa gasped, her face pale and wild. "What can we do? We can't just let it take more lives." Oliver breathed, the reality of his folly dawning upon him. As the moon reached its zenith, their fear coalesced into determination. They gathered offerings, bits of charm and trinkets from their homes, believing desperately that perhaps, if they could appease the beast, they could quell its appetite for destruction. Clutching their makeshift tributes, they walked bravely back into the woods, hearts pounding in sync. They reached the clearing where they first encountered the wraith. With trembling hands, they laid their offerings upon the ground, the symbols of hope against despair. Shadows drifted, but in the stillness, a dreadful quiet followed. Then, through the trees, the creature emerged, its hungry gaze locking onto Oliver. Memories of those it had claimed flickered before him, the laughter of lost youth haunting his thoughts. In that moment of reckoning, Oliver realized the truth. The myth was not merely a story focused on the beast. It was an ancient warning. With all his courage, he stepped forward and whispered softly, "We are here now. We won't run." Quote, the Chimeran Wraith drew closer, circling them with an intensity that ignited the air. Then, with a sudden clang of unfurled wings, it recoiled. The offerings trembled at its feet, and the serpent head hissed indignantly, wrestling with a hunger that was simultaneously primal and profound. With a shattering screech, it turned, disappearing into the very shadows from whence it came, leaving behind lingering whispers of fear and wonder. The townsfolk would breathe easier that night, but Oliver knew the truth. The wraith would return and darkness would once again loom over Eldermoor, but next time, they would be ready. For in believing they had defeated the myth, they had awakened something far worse. The realization of their own mortality and the power of the nightmares that waited, lurking just beyond the fringes of light.